And we're singing. We're singing. Dun, 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 dun. Time to talk. Beauty and the Bitch. Okay, Mickey.
What?
You know how, I went to, no big deal, Scotland and Ireland this year? Mm-hmm. Well, when I was in Ireland, I met this really nice tour guide that was, taking us around, and he was telling us this great story. Do you want to hear it?
Sure, of course.
He was saying how you can tell the difference between, a Scottish accent and an Irish accent because people in Ireland sound very sexy. And this very nice, sexy accent. And people in Scotland are like, herba, gerba, 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 gerba.
That is racist!
Well, he's the one who said it.
Oh, but you're just spreading racist jokes, Morgan.
I just wanted to make sure we could tell the difference in accents.
I can see that you've forgotten that when I did 23andMe, I am solidly 45% Scottish.
And so that's why you don't make any fucking sense.
Gerba, 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 gerba.
Yeah. It's exactly like the Chef Muppet from the Muppets. He doesn't make sense. He just does
Wait,
that.
he's supposed to be Swedish, though, isn't he?
Barbarbichiti.
You know. Have you heard the origin of the word barbarians?
No.
In Rome, in ancient Rome, Germanic tribes and anyone outside of the Roman Empire, the way they would make fun of their foreign speech is they would say it was bar, 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 bar. And that's why they are called barbarians. Bar, 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 bar. It's literally a racist joke based on their speech.
Oh, everything is racist.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Racist Podcast.
I'm a racist. She's a racist.
Everything can be clipped and used against you.
Oh, no.
So true. No, for sure, we're not intentionally racist in any facet.
No.
And we do love Scottish people and Irish people. Yes. And we're here to celebrate Scottish people today. Welcome back to Beauty and the Bitch. I'm Morgan.
And I'm racist.
Established.
I'm Mick. I'm not racist.
Mick, racist. Race Mick.
No.
So we're here today to talk a little bit about Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, which is a really popular book series turned popular TV adaptation on the Starz network.
I'm glad you knew how to say her last name, Queen.
To be honest, I just went with it. I'm not saying it's accurate.
Oh, I didn't mean to call you out. When I read it, I was like, girl.
I also don't know where she's from.
Gabaldon.
Is she Gabaldon. European or American? I want to say...
She's pretty.
She is pretty. It would make sense if she was European because she's very, historically knowledgeable. But, there's lots of Anglophiles in America, so
That's
who's
true.
to say?
Well, if she's French, it would be Gabaldon.
Gabaldon.
I think.
Yes.
Which is great. I love that.
Diana Gabaldon.
Diana.
Diana.
Yeah.
So anyway, she's this super precious lady who is very into Scottish history, very into it, which I super relate to because as everybody who's a fan of the podcast knows, Mary Queen of Scots is my OG homegirl. Love her. R.I.P. Queen Elizabeth really did a number on her neck and head situation, which she separated.
But don't you think they should have been separated though? I mean, everything I've read about, she had this really incredibly, lumpy ring on her neck right before her head. And it was you know how sharks are made of cartilage? It was like that, but all the way around, and had teeth in it. She had two
These
twins.
are facts.
Yes, and the twins they didn't make it out of the womb.
Yeah. They just lived in her neck cartilage.
Yeah.
That happened to me one time.
Oh my God, everyone knows. That's actually what you're most famous for, is having a lumpy neck full of baby teeth.
And my leg is brown specifically because my leg ate another twin.
Whoa. Your leg is brown? Podcast canceled.
Only 30% of it.
No, I'm racist. That's too much.
What do you think is it? More 20%? I'm not very good at math.
No, not even that much. I would say 12%. Maybe.
Wow.
Of your whole body or just of your leg?
Just my leg.
Oh, just your leg? Oh, maybe 30%.
Yeah, okay.
Wait, that doesn't make sense for the math. Neither of us are
30% of the time, every time, my leg is brown. And that's how that goes. So, I am a huge Outlander fan, and I've got some, facts and figs to share, but, before we jump into that, I thought maybe you could tell us, your history with Outlander as, a person.
Sure. About a year ago, we were recording a podcast, and Morgan said, I love Outlander. And I said, oh.
That's about when I got into Outlander.
Yeah. And that's my history with the series.
End of history. He said, "What's that? That sounds cool."
Genuinely, normally Morgan is the one who drops the balls. I just fondle the balls, but Morgan drops them. But this week, I'm coming innocent as a newborn babe. I was gonna try to watch it on Starz because you can rent it on Amazon. You can subscribe to the channel via Amazon Prime. Right?
Yeah, you can add it as a subscription.
Yes, and I sure enough meant to. But girl, I spent the week in Arkansas, and let me tell you something. They don't have no technology there.
No, it actually stops right at the border. Yeah. Texarkana, nothing.
That's
Texarkana and Texas. All the technology.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really fair, but, whatever.
We're literally losing people with our jokes about Arkansas.
Yeah, they're like, girl, I don't even understand. So I did mean to watch it, but I don't know much about it. But I will tell you, I know that one man is fine as hell.
Sam Heughan.
And I do also know that I have his picture saved on my phone because at some point I want to get my hair cut like him in that show.
Yeah, and you have a very similar hair type. And you're already on your way there. You're very much on the way.
Oh yeah,
it's working.
Thank you. Aww.
Yeah, so Sam Heughan is very sexy, and I think if you know anything about Outlander, honestly, that's probably the thing that you know. But interestingly, his performance as Jamie Fraser, one of my biggest fantasy literary crushes ever, doesn't get promoted as he doesn't get nominated for awards or whatever. But Katarina Balfo, okay, I don't know how to say her name, but the chick who plays Claire, Katarina something that starts with a B, she gets nominated frequently, not for huge awards like the Emmys and stuff, but maybe she did this year, but she gets nominated for a lot of awards. She gets a lot of recognition.
Oh, yeah, she has an interesting name.
Yeah. I think she might be, have a French heritage.
Ooh.
But I think she's very British.
Oh, she's beautiful,
She's
too.
stunning.
Oh, no, she was born in Dublin, Ireland.
Oh, she's Irish. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But she might still have French heritage, though.
Maybe. I wonder if she has an Irish accent in real life, because her British accent is, she has a very, subtle and, lovely, British tenor.
Let me tell you this. Look what I just read on IMDb. She started modeling at the age of 19, bitch. After she was scouted by an agent, bitch, while she was collecting money for charity, bitch.
Oh my god.
I hate her. She's too beautiful. And
that is insane. You could not make that shit up.
No.
And she is stunning.
She's so beautiful.
Yeah, she's flawless. Her skin is like a porcelain baby doll.
Well, do you think that her performance, do you think she deserves to get nominated even though Sam Heughan doesn't?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think that she is very well cast as Claire Beecham Randall Fraser, the character that she plays. But when I watch the show, and it's so, sexist, I guess, but, all I can, pay attention to is, what is Jamie doing all the... I'm just so, wrapped up in him because I'm, so obsessed. And it's, weird. I feel, weird about it because, I feel in general... I'm not often that crazy fangirl that's I would not know what to do in public if I saw this person. But, I feel that way about him because he's just so, not a real person. He's just, so beautiful to me.
I think everyone's allowed 2 or 3 fangirl.
Well, girl, let's just put him on my list.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, I just pulled
that face, though, and those eyes with that red hair. And red hair is hard to pull off for some people.
And don't forget his starring turn in A Princess for Christmas,
which I recommended.
Yes.
Okay, he was legit so cute in that movie also, and I still stand by my recommendation of that.
He's very beautiful.
Yeah, he's gorgeous. But yeah, so I just feel it's not fair that he doesn't get recognized. But I'm but maybe he's a terrible actor, and I just can't tell because I love him. You know what I mean?
Not to call him out, because I know Brad Pitt listens to this, and he might actually sob if I say this, but I kind of feel that way about Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
He's a fine actor. I'm not coming for him or anything, though I have come for him.
Girl!
Hey-o.
Yes!
But, he's not... Really, you just stare at him and love him most of the time. His acting is pretty mediocre, I think.
I've read this thing this one time that was I bet you don't know what Brad Pitt's voice actually sounds like, because, you spend so little time paying attention to what he's saying, but then also he, slightly changes accents a lot. Like, for example, when he was in Inglourious Basterds, like, he had this real weird Southern voice. Yeah. But, like, in a lot of films, he uses his real voice. But, like, when I read that sentence, I was like, literally, I could not summon the sound of his voice. And that's so unusual for famous actors, like, you know?
Yeah. And he's really hard to... He also doesn't have a really notable voice, I don't think. You know what I mean? Like,
it's not
it's
special.
hard to do an impersonation of Brad Pitt. It's possible. But I find normally when people impersonate him,
you don't even...
It's like in a role.
Yes.
You know, like how he like is always eating things or something in Ocean's 11 or blah, 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 whatever. Yeah, I agree with that.
So
but to
weird.
me, Sam Heughan is kind of a Brad Pitt type. And that doesn't... I mean, maybe this is sexist too, but it doesn't really matter to me
what's
if he's talented
happening
or not because he's so gorgeous.
Girl Sam.
Yeah, I'll be a fan.
Let me hit you with some facts and figs about Outlander, and then we can kind of get into a deeper discussion of, like, what's happening here.
Okay, that sounds good.
So the first Outlander book came out in 1991.
Oh, that was your Sweet 16, wasn't it?
Girl, I'm so young!
Okay.
Outlander is comprised of 8 full-length novels, with one currently on the docket to come up. It is called... Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. All the titles are kind of weird. So there's a 9th one on the docket. There is a total of 10 planned books. So she's going to wrap it up with book number 10. It has one spinoff series about Lord John Grey.
Who's a gay character?
It has 3 novellas, which are just like small side stories. And it has 3 companion books. And there are currently 3 seasons out on the Starz network. And the series has sold collectively over 25 million copies internationally.
Shit.
That's a lot, right?
JK, she's coming for you, JK.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a ton.
Yeah.
Well, and I heard, too, that the Starz series has recently been renewed through season 6. That happened, like, just a few months ago, right? So that's going really well, evidently.
And you know what they do really intelligently? The way that they have done it is that every season just covers one book, which is great because... you know, it's already renewed for 6 seasons. 6 is a lot, but if they want to plan to go to 10, they can cover the entire series in 10 seasons. And honestly, I think that's a lot of seasons for a show like this, so I don't know if they're going to be able to do that, especially with, like, the age of the characters, because, again, time travel... not again, for the first time, I think I'm saying. Time travel is a big aspect of this book. So, like, you're asking characters to play 18-year-old in one scene and, like, 45 in the next. So, like, as they actually get older, you know, because that's, like, across the next 4 or 5 years. Like, not that they won't age gracefully, but that's a big ask, I think.
So, wait, what kind of time travel? Do they have time turners? Do they have a magic watch?
Okay. So, great questions.
Thank you. I thought they were good.
So, I wrote down the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5 elements of what I think Outlander is made up of. Like, if there was a diagram that was like, these are the categories this book falls into, and I put them in order of importance, or in order of the presence of these things. Okay. So, the number 1 thing in Outlander, number 1 element is romance. The number 2 element is that it's a period piece. And that period changes frequently because of time travel. And also just because time goes on. Time traveling is the number 3 element. The number 4 element is subtle magic. And the number 5 element is war. Okay, so we'll talk about this time-traveling subtle magic situation.
Okay, yeah, I'm confused. I'm suddenly confused.
So they use a version of magic that's very intrinsic in, like, the Celtic culture, like the Celts, or the Celts, or whatever you call them. And it's kind of, like, based in this sort of, like, mythological, very European way of thinking about, like, fairies. Like, there's this, like, hidden world of fairies, right? And there's still today in Scotland, the biggest celebration of the year in Scotland is the Beltane Festival, which is, like, the welcoming of spring. And it's, like, huge. And I think it's in Edinburgh, maybe it's in Glasgow. But people from all over the world travel there to celebrate Beltane, which is like a Celtic tradition. And it's very ingrained in, like, standing stones and the magic that comes with standing stones. For example, Stonehenge The heads on Easter Island are kind of standing stones. And all over the UK, there's things like Stonehenge. There's like smaller circles of standing stones. And there's this like ancient magic, like fantasy that goes along with those. And that is the magic that lives in these books.
Do they talk, is ley lines a part of that at all?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
Okay.
And then additionally, there is an element of magic with gemstones. Like gemstones are very powerful because they are of the earth. And so there's all of that going on, but like they talk about it. So Claire lives, we meet her, she's the main character in the first book, right after World War II. Mm-hmm. She was a nurse in the war. Her husband Frank was in the British intelligence agency.
But she was a Nazi, right?
No. No. No Nazis. Well, I mean, they were there, but she didn't like them.
What were they fighting then?
So anyways, so it's around that time. So like she happens upon some like standing stones. It's like this whole thing I won't get into, but she knows about the myths or whatever, and she thinks that that's bullshit, of course, because, you know, she's a 20th century woman. Why would she believe in such things? And then, like, she kind of witnesses some supernatural type things happening, and then, of course, she experiences a supernatural thing when her presence in the standing stones, I think on the Beltane, like the turning of spring or whatever, there's like a magic to do with the seasons and like the lunar alignments and like basically all the woo-woo stuff that's tied to like the earth being powerful is what this magic is all about. And then through the standing stones, they become like a portal that's like not super clear, but she like passes through the standing stones and ends up in the standing stones, but like 200 years in the past. So same place, just transported through time. And that's how the time traveling works. And just like you said, ley lines and stuff, there are other portals around the world. And you kind of learn about that as the series goes on. Full disclosure, I'm only on book 4, so I'm like rapidly trying to finish it before season 4 comes out because they're very true to like one season, one book. So I'm like preparing myself for that. But you keep like learning all this new information. But yeah, it's very like all these portals around the world and they're like tied to this earth magic and this like lunar alignment and like ancient wisdoms.
Well, for anyone who's not a high witch like me and Morgan, ley lines are... Okay, now I need help. Ley lines are connected to the magnetic fields of Earth, and they're like these lines of power that run naturally through the Earth, right?
And you can even see like ley lines are acknowledged by science and everyone. It's just what you think about the ley lines that's woo-woo. Yeah. You know, whether or not you think it's just like a magnetic force or if there's like a deeper power at work there, that's the differing opinion.
Well, I think magnets are magic.
They
As
fucking
that
are.
ICP song once stated.
The Insane Clown Posse.
Yes. They say magnets. How do they work?
Is that for real?
That really happens. I forget what the name of that song is. I'm going to pull it up right now.
That's too real. That should be our new theme song.
Oh my god. Great idea. I'm literally, so what I'm Googling is ICP magnets, but you go ahead.
I'm not at all shocked by this Google search, so I will continue.
Normal life.
So with those being the elements of Outlander, I feel like it's like romance, of course, is the one thing that people think of when they think of Outlander. And I feel like that says a lot about the story and also turns a lot of people off. So I thought maybe we could have a discussion about romance novels and like the connotations that go along with them.
Oh, yes. Would you say that you're a fan of romance in general? Is that something you read a lot of?
It's weird because I don't read any books shelved on the romance section. Like I can't think of any other books I've ever read from the romance section besides Outlander, but I love romance stories. You know, like having love as a part of the storyline is a big plus for me.
See, and I'm cold and dead inside.
Yeah.
I will tell you, though. Well, actually, I'm sorry.
Tell me about the ICP.
May I just... Can I do, like, a dramatic reading?
Yes!
This is the second verse of the song Miracles by the Insane Clown Posse. Music is a lot like love. It's all a feeling. And it fills the room from the floor to the ceiling. I see miracles all around me. Stop and look around. It's all astounding. Water, fire, air, and dirt. Fucking magnets. How do they work? I could go on, but do I need to?
I feel like it's such a huge art piece all in itself that we don't need anymore. But also, I suddenly realized I don't think I've ever heard a song by Insane Clown Posse.
It's a good one to watch. I would say indulge in your favorite indulgence, whatever makes you feel happy and chill, and look up the music video on YouTube. It is fucking hilarious.
That's amazing.
Yes. But back to actual, much more important topics.
Romance,
yeah. I will tell you, when I was 15, somehow a romance book found its way into my library. Like, maybe my mom got it at a yard sale or something. And I read that shit. It was about a small town girl with bouncing red hair. And she was lonely, and no one loved her, and she was a seamstress for her small town. And then this carpenter moved into town. He was new.
I'm listening.
And he was he's like a bigger guy, like a bearish type
They
guy.
always are.
Yes. And he came over to help, like, fix something on her house that she couldn't fix herself. And she was very cold to him at first. But over time, he broke down her barriers. And I mean that.
He warmed her.
Yes, he did. He warmed her with his large, bare hands. And in the end, they got married and had kids. And I cried. Yeah. I was very touched by it. Yeah. But you know me. I don't, like, read or watch a lot of schmaltz like that. So I have a very low resistance.
Yeah.
My heartstrings are pulled.
And I'm the opposite. I love to read and watch that kind of stuff, but I only like a quality with an asterisk because I like trashy things, but only if they're, like, good trash, because there's a very big difference between trash and, like, good trash. And so, like, I don't know. I've just never gotten into the Danielle Steels of the world, or, like, the whatever. Any book that has a picture of, like, a dude with, like, out a shirt on it, I have, like, not really considered it because it just looks like garbage.
If Fabio's included,
it looks like garbage.
Didn't Danielle Steele write Flowers in the Attic? Isn't that Danielle
Steele? I don't
know. I'm Googling that right now, too. Flowers in the Attic. Oh, no, that's by V.C. Andrews. That's maybe one we should read to get into it, because it's, like, half romance, half, like, horror.
Oh.
But it's also, I warn you right now, because I did a lot of research, I got very interested in this series.
What's it called?
It's called Flowers in the Attic. It's the first one. It was published in 1979. It's a gothic novel. But it's very incestuous.
Oh, very Game of Thrones?
Very Game of Thrones. They're like two pale blonde kids.
Okay, yeah.
That might be a way. Maybe next year we'll end up doing episodes on it. Because it's very well known. So.
Well, you know who else is very well known? Danielle Steele, and I can't believe I've never read a book by her. And she is, like, prolific. I read an article about her last year, and she had... the amount of books that she has sold and her net value is, like, insane. But also, she has this, like, custom-made writing desk that she writes at that's, her like, 3 favorite books. They're, like, giant books that have been turned into, like, a desk for her.
What?
Yeah. It's kind of a cool desk, but it's also, like, a little narcissistic because they're her books.
Yeah, that's a little... Well, but you know what?
But... Bitch has so much money that, like, nobody can say anything. No. People are just like, okay, I'll take your $4 million and make that for you, or whatever.
Yeah, and if I do say something, she'll just squash me with her money.
Yes, girl! Yeah. She's crazy.
I don't know. Well, what has stopped you from getting into romance, though?
It feels trashy and not the way that I like trashy things. Like, I like trashy YA type things. But, like, there's, like, this mental barrier, this, like, connotation in society that it's, like, embarrassing to be caught reading, like, a romance novel in public or something. You know what I mean?
You read Shades of Grey, though, didn't you?
I did not. I watched the first 2 movies, though. Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I didn't read them.
Every time I go to a thrift store, always one of those books is there.
Or all of them times 20?
Yeah, exactly. And I always pick it up and open it up to a random page and read it aloud. And never once has it been good.
Yeah.
Every single time it's trash. But that worries me. I mean, that's kind of the reason I haven't gotten into it, too, is I'm sure there is good romance. I don't doubt it. Maybe Outlander is one of the few, you know? But it's like Shades of Grey. Is that what it's called?
50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey. Yeah. Like, that was mad popular, right? And I was like, if this is the best you have to offer me, no thank you.
And I don't think it is. I think that I think that particular one got, like, popular in, like, a vacuum almost because it was on this, like, the way they marketed it, they had a great marketing campaign. They told people that it was like Twilight, except like really dirty sex stuff, which for most people who read Twilight were like, you know what make this book great? Really dirty sex stuff.
Yeah, right.
But then it was, of course, very different from Twilight. But then
nothing like Twilight, really.
But it became this like acceptable dirty thing that you could read because like there is a lot of like very like dirty and like taboo things in it that maybe as like single mother is like something you would love to indulge in, but like don't want to be caught doing like inappropriate things or like whatever. When things are like publicly popular, it just makes them easier and more accessible, right?
Totally.
Like racism in the age of Donald Trump.
Oh, and we got political. I will tell you, I do love that chapter, I think in the second Shades of Grey book, that's all about scat play. Really into that. I thought that was really interesting. And I was like, you're courageous for taking that step. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
That doesn't exist.
No.
Does it? I really don't know.
I don't think
Probably
so.
not.
It wasn't in the movie.
No, well.
But yeah, so for me, I got into Outlander because I saw a trailer for the show. It had already been out like 2 seasons. Season 3, I think, was out last year when I first got into it.
Because the show debuted in like 2015, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
2014.
And so I was like, okay, well, I need to read these books to catch up because that's just the kind of person I am. So I kind of like speed read through like the first 2 because I wanted to watch both of those seasons that were available to watch on Starz. And I got the first one on Amazon and read it, loved it. It was super for me. I was very into it. Went to Half Price Books to find the second one. Was looking all through the fiction section, all through the fantasy section. Went to sci-fi. Went to like historical fiction. Couldn't find it. And I was like literally, I did all of that. And I was like, where the fuck is this? And I asked an associate and they took me to the romance section. And I was like, no, you must be mistaken. Right. Like I literally was like, these are not my people. This is not my book section. And it was like a whole fucking shelf of like this entire Outlander series. And it literally like something clicked in my head and I was like, girl, you have been reading romance novels. You like romance novels. That's what this book is. It was like so weird how I did not associate it with that.
You know, what's interesting about that, though, is, one, I think we need to get rid of genres altogether.
Interesting.
I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it because I feel like, you know, we talked about, I think back when we were doing Lord of the Rings, like a year plus ago, back in the day, there was no such thing as a fantasy genre. There wasn't really a romance genre. There were just novels. There were just novels. And, like, often when I go to Half Price Books or any bookstore, I can never find the stuff I'm looking for because, to me, a lot of things are fantasy. You know, but they call it like magical realism, and they'll put
like Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Exactly what I was talking about. And that's literally one of the books.
Life of Pi, I think, is probably one of those books.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, why isn't this fantasy? Just because it's popular. It hasn't been ghettoized, essentially, and put into a genre. Yeah. But I also think romance specifically, it's the patriarchy coming for your literature because so many romance novels are written by women for women, and they make such use of the female gaze when it comes to sex, and when not female gaze like lesbians, but gaze like Gaze. And I think that a lot of the movers and shakers in the world of literature don't want to see that. And they're like, this is hardly even literature. I think
you're
romance.
So right. I think you're so right.
As a man, I love to hear you say that.
And I think that's a really powerful thing, what you said about like the Gabriel Garcia Marquez's of the world, that like what they write is literature. But what Ursula K. Le Guin writes is fantasy. When, of course, what she has written is, like, just as prolific and powerful in so many ways.
Yeah, Left Hand to Darkness is one of the most amazing books ever written.
Wow, that's really interesting. I think I had never thought about it that way, but it makes so much sense.
I'm going to open a bookstore, and it's just going to be organized by the author's last name.
I like it.
That's what we're going to do. And if you say to me, oh, I want a fantasy book, I'm the bookstore owner, so I can say, okay, what do you mean by fantasy? And then I'll say, get out of my store and go on to whatever exists in Amazon.
But then you'll whisper like, Tolkien's under tea.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that works too.
Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting what you say that it's written for women by women, because it might not shock you to learn that the demographic for the TV show on Starz is 59% women.
Ooh.
So predominantly women are watching Outlander, which makes sense. But there is a lot of action and like war stuff. But I guess because it's this romance thing, it's mostly a female audience.
I think we were talking before we started the podcast, but when I was doing my minor research, I saw a review that had been written. It was some English critic, and they were like, if you like Game of Thrones, but you want softer lighting and slower sex scenes and like a really slow, boring build, this is good for you. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about that review, because I feel like if the sex scenes in Game of Thrones is the bar we're going from, first of all, that is a horrible bar.
Because it's literally just rape and incest?
Pretty much all of it. Yeah. I mean, how many actual healthy sex scenes have we seen in that show?
I mean, like John and Ygritte.
Okay, that's true. That was a really good one.
But that's like one thing.
That was when she had him prisoner, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. And he also was like not supposed to have sex and was like committed to that.
Yeah. So I mean, okay.
So there's still like unhealthy elements to that.
Yes, but I mean, that might be one of the very few healthy scenes. Most of them are horrible, and primarily they're horrible to women. So like, I don't know. That just kind of pissed me off. I didn't appreciate that review one bit.
Do you remember when you judged me because I have a thing for Littlefinger?
Well, all the judgment blurs together. I don't remember that specific.
I still stand by that.
He's very sexy.
Yeah. So that's interesting that you bring that up about that Game of Thrones thing, because I copied and pasted two little phrases that I saw attached in a lot of reviews. And I think this first one is a very negative thing. It's often marketed as a mom series, like a series for moms, which to me says that like, I feel like there's this whole thing where, like, this romance stuff is like, well, you're obviously living in an unsatisfactory, like, sex life situation, so here's, like, your outlet through, like, these really great sex scenes. And for me to be like, this is a mom series, it's like, oh, you have to drudge around all day, like, having children. Gross! Your husband doesn't love you! Here's a beautiful love story to get you by through the evenings. Like, to me, that's such a sad thing to say.
Well, it also makes, if that's a mom series, what, a dad series is like what?
Game of Thrones, I think.
Oh, okay. So like,
where it's just like drudgery and like fucking and like power.
So that's interesting. So essentially, I don't know, I think that's a very negative thing to say, and also very unfair, because that tells me that women are unhappy and men are unhappy, but women just want to be loved and have good sex, while men want to rape and murder.
Yeah.
Right?
That's essentially the message that's being sent.
And, like, go to war. Yeah. So I'm also like, okay, well, this is why I can't be part of you straight people.
Girl, they got it all wrong. I also saw it in a just single review marketed as an anti-Game of Thrones, which I thought was interesting. And I think maybe they were like taking that perspective, like you were saying, like if you're more interested in like the tender loving side of like complicated relationships in a period piece strewn across the lands, then Outlander's for you. But if you want that other stuff, you can go to Game of Thrones. And also, it's very, like, Starz versus HBO. And, like, Starz traditionally doesn't have these, like, big hit shows that people tune in for. So, like, Outlander is huge for them. Like,
American Gods is on Starz, too, isn't it? Those are, like, the two big
That's, like, their two big TV shows, pretty much. But, yeah, they kind of live for that Outlander money. And especially with, like, 2 more seasons renewed and a potential for 10 total, it's like their Game of Thrones, but like in no way is it making as much money as Game of Thrones, probably. You know what I mean?
Well, Game of Thrones, we're going to look back on Game of Thrones, I think, and this whole, like, fanaticism and be like, oh, it's good. I'm not saying it's not good, but, like, wow, our culture was obsessed with that shit.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit overhyped, but no one shoot me in the head with anything.
No, for sure not.
Yeah, I just pulled up the big shows on Starz. You've got Power, which I see John Cena and 2 very good-looking black men, but I don't know what that's about.
Okay, never heard of that, but I do like John Cena.
Yes, I do, and I do like good-looking black men. I'm sorry I don't know who they are. Outlander and American Gods, and then Black Sails, which is like...
I've heard of that. It's like a pirate thing, I guess.
Oh, it's like a pirate thing. And then Ash versus Evil Dead. That's pretty much all I see on here. So, yeah, they're really banking on Outlander. I'm not surprised. And I will tell you, too, you said 61%...
59% women.
59% women. What's the math on that? 41% men or whatever?
Or other.
People who are without gender. Do you think that's because of later, like, gay characters? Or, like, do you think there's a gay element to it?
I don't know. I think that's a great question. I in no way have any data to back this up.
I love those kinds of things.
But I feel like the millennial generation or whatever, we're very into like what's hot across the board, like regardless of like what gender specific thing it might be targeted towards, and we're more apt to kind of like tune in to see either what the hype is all about, but also to be a part of the conversation, because as a society, especially for the millennial generation, we have FOMO. We have FOMO of not being able to participate in the convo, FOMO of not understanding what's happening, just not being able to talk about pop culture in general, which is kind of like a weird thing. But like, I have it personally. Like, I definitely have that. Like, I want to be the person who knows like everything about everything. And if somebody's like, what's blah de blah, I can tell them like the entire Wikipedia history off the top of my head.
Totally.
So I think maybe that has a little something to do with it. And maybe there's a wave of like men embracing more like femininity and like loving love, and there's
feminist men are definitely coming up. Yeah. Well, I love that. I mean, I would be really interested. I wish I could find somewhere the breakdown of like heterosexual men, gay men,
oh my god,
heterosexual women, gay women who watch this show, because I don't know. I mean, if you were a lesbian woman, do you think there would be? Well, I guess we were just saying it doesn't matter, but are there any lesbian romances or like real, besides the main character, like hot and sexy lady?
Nothing of note.
Okay.
That I can think
some kind of witch lady? I don't want giving.
Yeah, she's pretty. She'll fuck anyone, but she's also like kind of evil. So like, that's not really fair.
Sounds like my type,
girl.
Hey.
She's sort of all over the place, but there's no like strong like lesbian character. The way that you get with like Lord John Grey and a gay character. I don't know. Yeah. So there's not like a great amount of representation also because it is a period piece.
Sure. And I don't mean to imply also. I think it's so easy to go down that slippery slope of like, oh, do you have an Indian character? Do you have a lesbian? Do you have a trans? I mean,
there are not a lot of.
Don't have to have.
There are not a lot of people of color because of
where it is.
The 1700s in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
And when there are people of color, often they are slaves because that was the nature of life on the farm and like whatever.
That's that historical
it's the sad history. Yeah. So there's that. So there is this really intriguing thing that happens in the first book that's like not super a secret. It happens in like the first episode of the show. It's not a spoiler, but there's this like sort of moment where, because there's a lot about time traveling that's ambiguous and like a lot of overlapping things and like worrying about changing the past and like worrying about changing the future because they don't understand how it works and they don't want to fuck it up. Yeah.
I mean, we've seen Barry fuck up the timeline about 40, 50 times.
I swear to God, me and the Flash are on the outs right now.
Get your dick out the timeline, Derry. Derry? That's because he changed
Derry's
dick. That's his name now.
And it's a terrible name.
It's Derry.
Derry. But there's a scene, right, where Frank, who is Claire's 20th century husband, which is her regular life, the life that we know and love before she time travels back into the 1700s or whatever, Frank sees a character that you very much later understand must have been Jamie. He like sees this person in their 20th century life, and then he goes to like talk to him, and then he just like vanishes. And that was like a weird thing. And I read an interview Diana Gabaldon was doing at like a conference, and somebody asked, because she had sort of announced that book 10 was probably the last book. Like, she didn't say like it is for sure, but pretty much like it's the last one. And somebody was like, when are we going to find out? Like, are you going to resolve this like mystery that you just really haven't talked about at all? And she was like, great question. That's actually going to be resolved in the very last paragraph of the very last chapter of the very last book. So it's like some pivotal moment in the story. And so there's some fan theories out there about that. And you know I love a good fan theory.
Oh, yeah.
But it's interesting that he vanishes because to me it says something about messing up the timeline. And I don't know what that means, and I don't want to like I didn't read too deep into fan theory, so I don't want to throw things out there. But for people who have seen that very first episode or who read that in the very beginning of the book and were wondering, you're not alone. We're all wondering, and you're gonna find out eventually, which I think is very exciting. I love a like long game. You know what I mean?
I do too. It's like how supposedly J.K. knew how Harry Potter was going to end from like the very beginning.
Oh, you said supposedly. You don't believe her?
No.
You don't believe her?
I don't really believe her, but I'm just saying maybe. I don't know. It was not that. It was a bit of a messy ending, I thought. So maybe she knew the epilogue was going to be there, but girl, I ain't giving no awards for the fucking
Girl, you
epilogue.
didn't like it. We know.
Yeah, let's talk about that for 20 minutes. Let's
We
read it
did.
word by word.
We did.
Okay, well.
So do you have any other general questions about Islander? I kind of had one more thing I wanted to talk about, but like...
Well,
wanted to open
we
the
haven't
floor.
talked a whole lot, because I know he comes in, I think, book 3, so I know
Lord
we don't
John Grey.
spoil things. Yeah, but can we talk just a little bit? Because I think
I would love
queer
to.
listeners are probably going to be like, oh, there's an interesting gay character? Oh, well, maybe just me. Just tell me more.
No, he is very interesting. So, you're right. You don't meet him until book 3. So he exists in book 3. And again, I'm on book 4. So I am not very deep into the series to know, but he's definitely in book 4 some. And he obviously gets his own spinoff series. So he has a load of adventures to go on. And so we meet him, after the Bonnie Prince Charlie's rebellion against the English crown. Bonnie Prince Charlie wanted to take Scotland back from England after Mary Queen of Scots. Scotland belonged to England. And some people in Scotland, the Highlanders specifically, wanted to take Scotland back. And so this is a real life war that happened, and it happens during this book. And Jamie participated in said war. And then afterwards he goes to prison. It's not like too much of a spoiler to say that, I think, because that's like what season 3 is like all about, like his prison times and stuff. And Lord John Grey is assigned to be like the warden of the prison that he is in. And Jamie is a natural leader, and so he kind of is the leader of like the prison. Like he's the spokesperson essentially. And so when the warden wants to negotiate with the prisoners, he talks to the leader, who is Jamie, and so they have to form a relationship to just keep cohesion in the prison. And that working relationship went on for many years. Many years he was in prison. And they developed a friendship because they spent a lot of time together, and they both really liked to play chess, so they were like always playing chess together. And I don't know, it was like kind of on and off, like Jamie could be really trusted. Lord John Grey felt like he could really trust him, but then Jamie would do something like kind of shady on behalf of the prisoners or maybe on behalf of himself, and then they would kind of get in a smuzzle. But it always came back around. But anyways, the long and short of it is that Lord John Grey is gay, and he was in love with Jamie.
Who isn't?
Girl. And at some point he expresses this to Jamie, and Jamie rejects him in like a very calm and like pretty kind manner for a person who was in prison and not in, you know, and the other person's in like a place of power. And Lord John Grey was like, that's cool, it's cool, it's cool.
Been there.
But he was like, sup with the friendship. And Jamie was like, tight, dude, we still friends. No probs, no probs.
That's sweet.
And so their friendship like deepened even more. Like they came out of that like with a better friendship, which is really great. It's like really great I think, to see their friendship and to, like, have that experience. And, like, because during that time, as, like, a closeted gay person, like, it was a very tenuous thing to, like, keep that a secret. And so, like, he could trust Jamie, which was great, and they continued to be friends. And then a bunch of things transpired in both of their lives after and outside of prison, and they continued to have this very close friendship. No matter what continent they were on, they were coming back together. They were very, like, intertwined. And so Lord John is a very important person in Jamie's life.
Oh, so it sounds to me like he is, within this, you know, so-called romance novel, he is like a well-drawn, honorable, kind, complex character.
He's great.
See, I really appreciate that.
Honorable, I think, is, like, the best word to describe Lord John Grey, because, to not give any spoilers away, there's a lot of things about him and a lot of choices that he makes, a lot of difficult choices, and he always makes the right choice, I think. And he is, like, a genuinely, like, just a good person. Like, of all of the people, evil people, bad people, middle ground people, like, he is just probably one of the, like, most goodliest people in the whole series.
Oh, he's like a Dumbledore.
He's great. He's a great person.
But what you're telling me, though, is when they play chess, their two kings don't diddle-daddle together.
It's weird because he glued little dicks onto all the pieces, so they're always just, like, swordplay.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's the way gay men do it.
Yeah, and Jamie's so stupid because he's straight, he didn't understand.
Straight guys are dumb.
Dummies! Just kidding, we don't have any straight men in our audience.
No. There might be. Your husband listens.
Hi, baby.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Lord John Grey is great. I'd love to hear from any of our listeners that maybe have read his spinoff series. It's on my, like, long goal TBR list, but girl, these Outlander books are, like, so long, like 800 to like 1300 pages. Like, it's a lot to get through. So,
and you just started last year.
Yeah.
Right? And you're reading all these other books.
Yeah.
At the same time.
So I'm trying to get through book 4 before season 4, but I think I can get there.
I believe in you.
I just wanted to talk, to wrap this up, about the casting of the series, because I think it's the strongest element of the entire thing. Because, as you know, for any adaptation, casting can make or break the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I think they fucking crushed it.
Mm. This isn't a Ben Affleck as Batman situation?
No. This is a Sam Heughan as Jamie Fraser situation, right? So, we've already talked about how that worked out great. But the lady Claire that plays... No, her name's not Claire. Katerina. She plays Claire, the character. She is also cast, like, perfectly, because she's supposed to be, like, older than Jamie, but, like, not that much older, but, like, also, like, wiser and, like, worldly. And, like, she just, like, embodies that so well. And she's supposed to have, like, kind of crazy hair and, like, a very, like, natural chic look. Like, and they always comment that her skin is like porcelain because, like, in the 1700s, there was, like, no such thing as sunscreen and people were always outside and working in the fields. And so, like, women aged more quickly as far as their skin went, and they also just had harder lives. So, you know, when Claire travels back in time, not to say her life wasn't hard, but she's this, like, beautiful, like, porcelain, like, baby doll to these people. They're like, how are you so beautiful? And I think she really nails that in the contrast of, like, the rest of the casting. She's very, like, dainty. And
she's tough too, right? Because she was like a field medic.
Yeah, she's dope.
She's like an independent, like, strong woman as well.
Yeah. Yes.
But so it's like me, beautiful but capable of great things.
Okay.
Just like me.
Yeah, just like you. But additionally, everyone else, it's largely a Scottish cast because it is a very Scottish series. But every person they cast, there's a couple of people that you'll be like, oh, I recognize them from either this BBC thing or from some other, like, very UK-based, like, programming that you may have seen, whether it's, like, Sherlock or Downton Abbey or whatever. So you can tell that all the actors are very seasoned, but in a very, like, specific way, because it is, like, this period piece, and all the people are, like, great at that. You know what I mean? Like, everybody can't do a period piece, but everybody in this show can do a period piece.
Girl, they can't put me in any kind of period piece, especially not in Scotland. Let's do Scottish accents right now.
I'm gonna throw a log.
I don't know.
I'm
Don't
just
they throw
kidding.
logs or something?
Yeah, they totally do in the Highland games.
Yeah.
I actually find Scottish accents very sexy, and that's a total joke of what I'm saying. Yeah. But I also found season 1 very hard to understand. The whole first season.
I was going to ask that, yeah.
The whole first season I had subtitles because it was very difficult. But then I became cultured and worldly, and now I can just like understand it without the subtitles.
Wow, look at her. Plus you've been there.
Plus I've been there. But they also use a lot of like Gaelic slang.
What'd you call me?
They incorporate a lot of Gaelic language into their everyday speak. They kind of do that sort of like pigeon language thing where it's like English and Gaelic, and so even in the subtitles, like it doesn't translate that for you. It just like writes out what the Gaelic word is. So you have to like be ready for like the context for a lot of stuff. And like now I love reading it because like when they write stuff in Gaelic a lot in the books, but like now I just like know some of the words because of 4 books deep of reading that stuff. So I think that's great too. It's kind of like reigniting the Gaelic language, which when I was in Ireland learned is was like almost an extinct language, like because they quit teaching it in schools when England was like, Ireland and Scotland, you belong to me. They were like, you're done with Gaelic. Now you speak English. And like previous generations, like Gaelic was like their first language. So there's like a big movement right now in Ireland and Northern Ireland. Like it's a mandatory language starting in kindergarten, and they do the road signs in Gaelic.
Oh, that's awesome.
So they're like trying to reignite the culture.
That's so interesting. Like that's very similar to like what the conquistadors and any colonizers always try to take away language, and it reminds me of do you remember in 1984? Do you remember that book?
Yeah.
I know it's like so overdone because everyone's like, oh, 1984 is my favorite book because they read it as a sophomore.
I preferred Brave New World.
Did you really?
I did.
Okay, I'll try not to judge you for that. But I also like Brave New World. But in 1984, there's that whole idea of like newspeak where they're essentially simplifying words so much that whole concepts like freedom and individuality go away. And once you lose the word for it, you lose the concept for it. Or at least that's the theory. But I think that's true. I think that's real life. When you name things, they become much more real and they give you something to hold on to. And so much of culture is wrapped up in language too. Anyway.
That's so powerful. And that's very, very much the case with Gaelic because like when he in the book, in the only concept of Gaelic I know from Outlander, he would like say words to her and she'd be like, like explain that to me or whatever. And he'd be like, but there's no equivalent. And so he would try to like give some analogies of like, it's kind of like this, but it's like not really that. It's more like a feeling. It's the feeling of like whatever, but they have a word for it and we don't in English. So that's very true and very powerful. So I'm glad they're bringing it back. I think that's awesome. Like they should definitely be teaching that in school and making it a priority. So that's great. Oh, but yeah, everyone else is a great casting choice, and I'm just so excited to get through the rest of Outlander, and I love it, and I'm so glad that you let me talk about it for 45 minutes today.
Oh my gosh, you're amazing, and thank you for doing all the heavy lifting. I was just looking, there's this guy, oh, I knew it, Graham McTavish. He plays Dougal Mackenzie. He was Dwalin in The Hobbit.
He totally was!
I was looking at the IMDb lineup and I was like, I know that motherfucker.
Wow, that's funny. I didn't put that together at all. Yeah, that's for
He's
sure
also
him.
the Saint of Killer. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
The Saint of who?
The Saint of Killers and Preacher.
Oh, shit. Dude, he's a
making that big bucks right now.
He's a good character actor. Yeah, he's great as Dougal Mackenzie, which is a great role to have. It's a good character.
Is he like the stepfather of the main guy or something?
He's the uncle. He's one of the uncles, but he's like a clan leader, but not like the Ku Klux Klan, like Scottish clans.
Yeah.
The good ones.
Clan with a C.
Yes, Clan with a C. So he's like a clan leader. He shares a clan leadership position with his brother. They're the leaders. And he's a real, like, powerful, he's a real man's man type, but he's, like, really good at what he does.
Do they all wear kilts all the time?
They do until the war. Part of, after Bonnie Prince Charlie's rebellion, England put a lot of laws in place to quell future rebellions, and they took away the culture from the Highlanders, and they made it illegal for them to wear kilts. And so the first couple seasons, all kilts all day, and then after that, it's illegal to wear kilts, and so we moved to trousers.
It's because the English were afraid of their muscular red thighs.
Girl, they should be. Yeah. Yeah, but due to pull it off, like, they really are pulling it off.
Oh, yeah. But see, if I put on a kilt, it would just look like a skirt.
You would look ridiculous.
Yeah. So I look ridiculous when I wear a skirt? Wow, Morgan. Homophobia is real.
No, just a kilt. You look great in a skirt.
Oh, thank you so much.
But plaid is also not really your color.
It's not really my thing. No.
Yeah.
I need to reconnect with my heritage. I'm going to do like a whole plaid, like an Alexander McQueen moment.
Oh my God.
Like plaid head to toe.
You're going to like create your own tartan?
Yes.
A tart's tartan.
A tart's tartan.
You could do it.
Oh my gosh.
It could be a memoir. A tart's tartan, regaining my gay Scottish heritage. I don't know. I'm spitballing, but I think we really have something.
I wonder what gay culture is like, because Scotland is kind of like a man's man.
Yeah, it's kind of gritty.
Well, there are gays everywhere, so I'm sure they're fucking somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure.
What if they don't use lube? What if they just use spit there? I'm sure that's not true. Is that a stereotype? I'm sure not. I've never heard that before. I may have just made up a stereotype.
Honestly, I don't know.
Scottish gay men, if any of you are listening, legit, let me know. Do you use lube in Scotland?
Or just spit.
Or just spit.
Check yes or no.
Or do you just cry and throw logs?
Oh, that's probably,
That's how I spend most of my days, more or less.
So great, so great. Man, now I really want to go home and read Outlander.
I know, right? Well, good. You can get through book 4 before it attacks you on Starz.
Well, hopefully we'll see. Do you have anything you want to plug for this week?
I have... This plug is a freakish 180-degree turn away from what we're talking about.
Great.
Okay. I recently watched Room on, I think on Hulu. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that?
With Brie Larson?
Yes.
I have.
Oh. Okay, so look, here's the thing. Y'all probably heard, Room came out in 2015. Okay, long time ago. I'm not plugging anything new. But at least in the things I subscribe to, it just recently became... it's on Netflix.
Streaming?
It's on Netflix. Yeah, it just recently came on Netflix. And I didn't, rent it or anything, even though I heard good things about it, because I was like, you know what? It sounds really sad. Okay, can confirm. Extremely sad.
It's true.
But, so it's essentially about, I think everyone knows, but it's about a young woman who gets abducted and held in a room, which is really like a shack, by this horrible, creepy rapist.
By literally any person's suburban neighbor.
Yeah.
Don't feel safe.
Yeah, don't feel safe. They call him Old Nick. That's what they call him.
Because of course he is.
Of course. Anyway, so it's all about how she gets pregnant by Old Nick and has a baby in this room, and she never leaves. I mean, what I loved about this movie, between sobs, I cried almost the entire movie.
It's so sad.
I mean, it is literally,
It's powerful.
I was crying within moments of it starting because I was touched at first because it's about how a mom and a son make a whole life for themselves in these really horrible circumstances. But the little boy, what is his name? Jacob Tremblay.
Yeah, and he's in a ton of shit now.
I was seeing that. I watched a scary movie with him in it recently too. But
he's all over.
That little boy is fucking talented,
and his face is stunning.
Yeah,
he has a
so
stunning
cute.
face.
He's such a swoop.
Yeah.
But he really captures really beautifully how children can take the shittiest situation possible and make it beautiful and sweet. I recommend this movie if you've been fighting with your mom recently. Because it will make you love and appreciate your mother, but also, Brie Larson doesn't play a perfect woman. She does a lot of things that I think you might say are questionable, perhaps.
Sure, absolutely.
But there's still a redemption to it, and there's an extreme beauty. I would put it on par with Boys Don't Cry or Requiem for a Dream. I'm probably not going to rewatch it.
It's a one and done.
Yes, but I think everyone should watch it, and it's streaming on Netflix right now. Just get your tissues ready.
And it's based on a novel by the same name that that I think was got some pretty good recognition.
Let's see. A novel of the same name by Emma Donoghue.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I might have to... No, I'm not going to read that.
No.
I've already experienced
Lord,
it. Sorry,
no.
Emma Donoghue, I'm done.
But I'm glad you got some money because it was a beautiful movie. And Brie Larson won the Oscar that year for her portrayal.
She was fantastic. I mean, everyone in that movie was great. Good, amazing. 10 out of 10. Actually, it's one of the only things, I keep my little movie journal. I think it was my first 10 out of 10.
Wow.
Out of everything I've watched in the last few months.
That's great. That's saying a lot.
Yeah, girl.
I would like to plug a book that I got out of one of the free libraries in Atlanta, which is just like cute little houses that are on poles that are like around. It's like a whole movement. And everybody I was with, I'm looking at you, Brittany, Erin, and Julie. They was like, you ain't never going to read that book. You just taking this free book from this free library because you selfish and you stingy. I'm paraphrasing. They didn't say all those mean things, but that's what they meant. And they were like, you'll never read it. Bitch, I finished that book last night.
Girl.
The Friday Night Knitting Club.
Where did you go on for that? That's essentially Room by Another Name, I think. Hard hitting.
It was really good in like a family suburban drama sort of way, but the way it was described on like one review was that it was like Steel Magnolias set in Manhattan. So if you're into things like that, I think it's a great description for it, and I enjoyed it, and I laughed, and I cried, and I'm glad I finished it, and now I'm recommending it to you, good people.
And also bragging and showing that she was right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
You told them
I
so.
did it!
You told them so!
I'm also, oops, I hit this. I'm also going to go tell them about it on social media, because that's who I am, but while I'm there, I might be so inclined to check out the Beauty and the Bitch pages.
Yeah, girl.
You can find us on Facebook.
Can you?
You can find us on Instagram.
You can find us there.
You can find us on YouTube.
Oh, now you're lying, girl. That's not true. We're not on YouTube.
No, really?
We are on YouTube. Oh, I forgot. In addition to almost every single episode.
Almost everyone but that one.
There's just one missing.
Just one.
We also, about once a week, are doing Let's Queer Witcher 3.
Hey.
I have to be honest with you, it's kind of stumbling along right now because I'm playing these other games because I got the fucking Xbox Game Pass and there's so many games at my disposal and I'm just overwhelmed with
Maybe
my
you should
own
just
joy.
film those other games and just be like, and here's an inserted segment.
You know what? I thought about actually doing that and just being like, girl, look, I lost interest in this. But I didn't really lose interest in Witcher 3. It's an amazing game. It's just, well, it's a long game.
It's a very
It's
long
like the
game.
Outlander of games. I mean, it goes on and on and on. But just so you know, I recently explored an island, went all the way up to the top of a haunted tower.
Oh, girl?
And I done killed a bitch because she pretended she was a friendly ghost. But when I looked at her, I said, girl, your eyes are black. And I never met no friendly ghost with black sunken eye holes.
It's literally not possible.
And let me tell you, I turned around twice, and when I looked back around, her tongue was hanging out her face. I said, you ain't fooled me! And then I fought her. So that's what's happening right now.
That's so funny. My friend Maggie the other day was like talking about supernatural experiences, and she was like, man, I just want to meet like a friendly ghost. And like in unison, everybody was like Casper. Which is not
Casper.
Yeah, but
I had
like
such a crush on him as a child.
Why is he so
when he
sexy?
turns into that one boy in that movie?
Jacob Sawa or whatever.
Sawa something or other. I don't care, but girl, I said, ooh.
Oof.
Drag me to hell, girl, if I get to hang out with him.
Girl, ain't no thing. All right, well, thank you for joining us, and be sure to check out that shit. You can follow me personally on the gram at Morganized Mess. Check out my blog, morganizedmess.com. Be sure to check out Mickey's Let's Queer Witcher 3 on the Beauty and the Bitch YouTube page.
And you can follow me as I take out my recycling, because I do recycle, and I rinse it out. And people in my apartment complex, PSA, you break down boxes when you put them in the recycling bin.
Oh,
what the hell kind of crazy? We live in a society.
These people were raised in a barn.
I guess so. There's throwing the whole boxes.
Nah.
A box will take up the whole damn recycling bin. You don't break it down.
Join us next week when we'll be talking about apartment etiquette.
Well, I'm hot right now. I literally just got angry.
Oh, all right. Well, we love you, babies.
Bye, Mimi.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Seriously, though, break down your boxes.
Do you have a home? Beauty in the Bitch. You look. Beauty in the Bitch. Beauty in the